Hey, how's it going? We got another book review today. Today we got Emile Zola's Therese Raquin. Hope I'm pronouncing everything right. Very great book. I loved this. It was absolutely wild. I thought it was just going to be a normal story about a marriage, kind of in a affair, in a romance, and it turns into crazy, nightmarish ghost story. I think I gave it a 4.75 out of 5. I had a very minuscule problem with it, but it wasn't anything that we could have done. It was just, since it was printed in serial, it was kind of annoying that like every few chapters everything had to be like re-explained for readers that like came in the middle of the story. That kind of bugged me, and even though it was only 200 pages long, it just like felt longer than it should have. I mean, the pages were pretty tiny, so I feel like it could have been like shortened and then just made the words a little bigger. But yeah, I mean, other than that, it was a freaking perfect book. I've never read Zola before. I've been meaning to get to him for a while now. I read a short story by Theodore Dreiser called The Sanctuary that I found in this old like American short stories collection book that I just randomly read. And it really got me in the mood for like a female lead character in France. Yeah, anyways, so I picked it up and it was exactly what I wanted to read, and I couldn't stop reading it, even though I could only read about 20 pages at a time, just because it was kind of heavy and just in a way where it was like a agonizing slow burn, but like purposeful. So I don't know, I would read like 20 pages of it and I have to like set it down and give myself a break. All I could do was think about it, and so I would just like have to jump back in and start reading it more. But it was absolutely insane. So I haven't read Zola before. I did a little author bio. He was born in 1840 and passed in 1902. He was a French novelist, journalist, and playwright. He was in the naturalist school. He was a major figure in the political liberation of France and was nominated for the first and second Nobel Prize award ever in 1901 and 1902. So he didn't win, but he was nominated for the first 2 years it was a thing. And that's what he's mainly known for, is just like this whole huge collection of like 20 books. I have it written down somewhere, but I don't even know if I want to try to pronounce it. I butchered it so bad when I was trying to do it by myself. It was the Rugar Makar. Le Rugar Lurugo Makar. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not good with pronunciations. But yeah, it's similar to Balzac's La Comédie Humaine, where it's just like a collection of 20 or 25 books that are like set in the same world, and like I think there's like some light connections with like characters and stuff. But this was, I believe, the first. Yeah, it was a good place to start. I heard this was a good first book to read by him, and I definitely want to read like probably that whole little collection. Like I love his writing, I love his psychoanalysis, like it was great. So I'm gonna read as much as I can of him, and he has a ton of books. So I've collected a couple. I get to like Balzac first and a couple other French people that I've been waiting on. Like I have to read Proust and a couple others I'm blanking on right now, but they're in my lineup. So it'll be a while before, probably later this year. I want to get to one of his books like in the fall, because that's, I feel like, a good time to read him. But yeah, anyways, his father was Italian Greek engineer from Venice, and he engineered the Zola Dam. He passed when Zola was 7. They moved to Paris in 1858. He began writing in the Romantic style. So he was 18 when he moved to Paris and he began writing. His mother wanted him to pursue law, but he failed the exam twice. He worked as a clerk for the publisher Hachette, which is one of the main, it's one of the big 5 right now, so they're still around. And he wrote literary and art reviews for magazines in 1862. He was a naturalized French citizen. He was married in 1870. He had to care for his mother, so she always lived with him. His wife hired a seamstress, which he ended up falling in love with. He was 48 and she was 21, so that's problematic. So but probably normal for the time. The affair was discovered in 1891 and they still didn't divorce, so his wife put up with it. His early years of writing, he wrote short stories, essays, 4 plays, 3 novels, including Confessions of Claude, which brought police attention and he was fired from Hachette. So nothing like writing a book and then getting fired from work. Therese Raquin being his first major novel and the start of Les Rogues Macquart, a 20-volume cycle. Over half his books are in this cycle, and like I said, similar to Balzac's La Comédie Humaine, Zola knew from the beginning and mapped the complete layout. By the time he was 28, he had this entire cycle laid out. This whole cycle experiences and examines two branches of a family over 5 generations. And he's quoted saying, "Heredity has its own laws, like gravity." L'Assommoir made him wealthy, which is one of those books in the cycle, and he ended up being better paid than Victor Hugo. So he lived a pretty popular life after that. And another big hit was Nana, which I believe I have a copy of, and then Germinal, which that for sure going to be the second book I read by him. I remember already buying a copy now. This isn't the book, but it's in the same style. I just bought this yesterday, actually. Old Goriot by Balzac, and I haven't even taken the sticker off. Half-price books, but honestly, I love these little old editions. They're some of my favorites. And same with these Penguin and Classics. They're also some of my favorite editions. But yeah, so he's definitely on the social scene, the political scene, the literary scene, the art scene. He lived crazy, popular literary life that most authors wish to attain, unless they're recluse. So more about this book, now that we know a little bit more about Zola. This was published in 1867. It caused a scandal and brought its 27-year-old author a notoriety that followed him throughout his life. Zola's novel is not only an uninhabited portrayal of adultery, madness, and ghostly revenge, but also a devastating exploration of the darkest aspects of human experience. And yeah, just that one line really sums it up very well. I honestly didn't even read the back. I kind of like doing that. I do that more often than I mean to, honestly, because I'll do research on a book and buy it and know that I want to read it, and then kind of put it in my TBR and just eventually get to it. And sometimes I'll jump in a lot of books without reading the back. I don't know, I felt like I was just as surprised as the people that read it in serial that just had no idea what was coming, because I kind of remembered that I was oh yeah, it's about an affair. That's about it. It turned out to be way crazier than I was expecting. Insanity, madness, psychoanalysis, two people just driving each other mad. It was just, yeah, it was absolutely crazy, and I could not stop thinking about it, grabbing it. I haven't had a book hook me that well in a long time. It was just absolutely mad. Therese Raquin obviously is the main character. She ends up marrying her cousin Camille. She lives with his mother and her aunt, and that's kind of how it all started. She was an orphan real young. Her aunt took her in. It was just her aunt. Camille's dad either ran off or died or something, I can't remember, and so it's just him and her, and he's been sick all his life. He is kind of crippled just from malnourishment and just can't get healthy. He's sick all the time, is always in bed. And so Therese kind of lives the same life he does, since the aunt is always taking care of him. Gets in that same routine of just sitting around and not doing anything, and they're the only people they know. And so eventually Camille gets healthy as an adult, and he wants to have a job. He's never had a job before, and he wants to go to Paris and live some life, because they live on the outside of Paris and in a small town. They eventually decide to move to Paris. He gets a job, becomes friends with this guy named Laurent. I might be pronouncing that wrong in a French accent, but that's how I said it in my mind. Laurent, and he is friends with Camille, and he comes over because he has a really bad apartment, and so he kind of uses Camille as an excuse to hang out at his aunt's house, and they play card games and have dinner, and so he doesn't have to make food. And Laurent comes over almost every night to get a free meal and to hang out until he has to go home and sleep in his apartment, because it's so terrible. He doesn't want to ever be there. And so, and honestly, he's half of the story. Once you meet with him, every other chapter is in his perspective, or just following him, and half is Therese Raquin And I was really surprised by that. I really thought the narrative was going to follow Therese the whole time. You get chapters of the aunt's perspective and Camille's perspective, so you get just like a well-rounded view of the whole dynamic of each of their relationships. And so they both kind of have their own reasons for like starting this affair. Therese has never really felt like sexual attraction before. She's kind of just feels disgusted with Camille, and they like don't have a relationship like that. They just like sleep in the same bed. And then Laurent, he just, wants to get laid. But like right when they start having an affair, they like ignite this passion that neither of them had felt before. It eventually drives them to come to the decision. And this isn't a spoiler. This happens like pretty early on, like the first 25% of the book, and then the rest of the book explores this. And even on the back, it kind of gives it away after reading it. But yeah, so they come to the decision to kill Camille. Just that process itself, like them coming to terms, like, and actually doing it, and like they almost do it a couple of times and then they back away, and then eventually they get it done, and things are never the same again. Paranoia and guilt eats them away, and then they start seeing reflections of him in the real world, and it just escalates from there. So highly recommend. I absolutely loved it. I can't wait to get to more of Zola. Definitely a new favorite writer of mine. And yeah, thanks for sticking with me. Peace.